It was 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in late October. The fluorescent lights above the fourth floor west wing of St. Mary's General Hospital in Dayton, Ohio, had been buzzing faintly for weeks. But that night, they went completely silent for exactly 17 seconds. When they snapped back on, every monitor at the nurses' station showed the same thing: flat lines on rooms that weren't occupied. Not one patient code, just flat lines. And then the hallway camera feed glitched. For 3 frames, someone or something was standing at the far end of the corridor, facing the station, wearing scrubs that didn't belong to any staff member on duty. I still have the screenshot on my phone. I never show it to anyone. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel before listening to the story, because there are many more scary stories coming up. All right, let me tell you this the way I would if we were sitting in the break room at 3 a.m. with lukewarm coffee and the only light coming from the vending machine. My name's Emily Carter. I worked night shift on Med-Surg 4 West at St. Mary's for 6 years, 2018 to 2024. I was 29 when the really bad stuff started happening. I'm 35 now, living in a small apartment in Kettering with the blinds always closed after sunset. I don't work in hospitals anymore. I can't. The first thing you notice on night shift isn't the quiet. It's the way the quiet feels, watchful. During the day, the hospital is loud. Beepers, carts, doctors yelling orders, families crying in the waiting area. At night, after visiting hours end at 8 p.m., the building seems to exhale. The hallways stretch longer, the elevators take forever, and the silence isn't empty, it's thick, like someone just stopped talking the second you walked in. We had a running joke on the floor. The hospital never sleeps, but it sure as hell dreams. We laughed because we had to. Most nights were normal: med passes, vitals, turning patients, charting until your eyes burned. But every once in a while, something would happen that made you question whether you were imagining it or whether the place was paying attention. It started small. Room 412, Mrs. Evelyn Hargrove, 82, end-stage COPD. Sweet lady, always asked for extra ice chips and told the same story about her husband bringing her daisies on their first date in 1959. She was a DNR. We all knew she didn't have long. One night around 1:20 a.m., her monitor showed a sudden drop in oxygen saturation, down to 78%. I grabbed the pulse ox, walked in, and found her sitting straight up in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the doorway. "Emily," she whispered, "he's standing there again." I looked. Nothing. Empty hallway, just the red exit sign glowing at the far end. "Who, Evelyn?" "The man in the gray coat. He comes every night now. Says he's waiting for me to finish my tea." She pointed at the bedside table. There was no tea, just an empty styrofoam cup from dinner. I checked her chart. Nothing new. No delirium orders. I reassured her it was probably the morphine playing tricks, adjusted her oxygen, and left the room. But when I got back to the station, the call light from 412 was already on again. I walked back down the hall. The fluorescent lights flickered once, hard, like someone had flipped the breaker and flipped it back. Evelyn was lying flat now, eyes closed, breathing slow. The call light was off. I hadn't even pressed it. I told myself it was a glitch. 2 nights later, Evelyn passed, quietly. No code, just gone. The aide who prepped her body said something that stuck with me. When she pulled the sheet back, Evelyn's right hand was curled around an invisible cup, like she was still holding tea. The fingers wouldn't relax until rigor set in. We chalked it up to muscle memory, but I started noticing things. Patients in rooms 410 through 416, odd-numbered side, began mentioning the man in the gray coat, always at night, always standing in the doorway, never speaking, just watching. One guy, Mr. Ramirez in 414, post-op gallbladder, told me at 3 a.m. that the man had been there for 3 shifts straight. He described him exactly the same way. Medium height, thin, gray wool coat buttoned to the neck, face in shadow. He doesn't blink, like he's waiting for me to fall asleep so he can step inside. I checked the security footage the next day during my break. Nothing. Clean hallway, empty doorways. But when I scrubbed forward to the exact time Ramirez said the man appeared, 2:58:03, the next second it was 2:58:19. 16 seconds missing. I showed the clip to my charge nurse, Tara. She watched it twice, then looked at me with tired eyes and said, "M, don't chase ghosts, you'll lose." But I couldn't stop. Then came the night of January 12th, 2022. It was snowing hard outside. Power flickered twice around midnight. We lost the monitors for about 40 seconds, long enough for every patient on telemetry to flatline on the screen. When they came back, everything was normal, except one room. Room 409, empty. Had been empty for 2 days. Terminal patient transferred to hospice. But the monitor in 409 was showing a heartbeat. Slow, steady, 42 BPMs. I walked down to check. Door was closed. I opened it slowly. The room smelled like wet wool and cigarettes. Old cigarettes. Something sour underneath, like old blood. The bed was made, sheets tight, pillow flat, but in the middle of the mattress there was a perfect indentation, like someone had been laying there for hours. The shape of shoulders, hips, head. I touched the sheet. It was warm. I backed out fast and called security. They swept the floor. Nothing. No one. The monitor in 409 went back to no signal the second they walked in. After that, things got worse. Patients started refusing to sleep facing the door. They turned their beds sideways or asked to be moved to even-numbered rooms. One woman in 411, post-hysterectomy, begged me to keep the hallway light on because he stands closer when it's dark. She described him the same way. Gray coat, no face, waiting. I started staying later after shift just to walk the halls alone. I told myself it was to check IVs or answer call lights. Really, I wanted to see him. And one night, I did. March 3rd, 2023, 4:12 a.m. I was the only nurse left on the floor. Agency nurse called out sick, aide on break. I was charting at the station when I heard it. Soft footsteps, not sneakers, not clogs, leather soles on linoleum. Slow, deliberate, coming from the east wing, heading west. I looked up. At the very end of the corridor, maybe 80 feet away, stood a figure. Medium height, thin, gray coat buttoned to the neck, face completely in shadow, even though the lights were shining directly on him. He didn't move, just stood, watching me. My heart slammed hard. I tasted metal. I reached for the phone to call security, but my hand froze. He took one step forward, then another. The footsteps echoed, too loud for how soft they should have been. I whispered, "Can I help you?" No answer. He kept walking, closer, maybe 30 feet now. The lights above him dimmed, not flickered, dimmed, like they were being smothered. I could smell it now. Wet wool, cigarettes, something sour underneath, like old blood. 20 feet. I stood up. My chair scraped loud. He stopped. For a long moment, we just stared at each other across the hallway. Then he raised one hand, slowly, and pointed. Not at me, past me, towards the nurse's station. I turned. Every single monitor on the wall was showing flat lines again, but this time the room numbers were wrong. 409, 412, 414, 416, rooms that were empty or had living patients, and under each flat line was a name. Evelyn Hargrove, Carlos Ramirez, Margaret Poole, James Whitaker, all patients who had died on our floor in the last year. I spun back around. He was gone. The hallway was empty, lights normal, footsteps silent, but the monitor stayed flatlined for another 8 seconds before snapping back to normal waveforms. I called in sick for 3 days after that. When I came back, Tara pulled me aside in the med room. "Em, you need to stop looking for him." I asked her what she meant. She looked down at her shoes. She said, "I've seen him too. Every nurse on this floor has, but the ones who keep looking, they don't last long." She didn't elaborate. 6 weeks later, I put in my notice. On my last shift, April 29th, 2024, I walked the floor one last time at 5:45 a.m., just before sunrise. The halls were quiet. No footsteps, no shadows. I told myself it was over. I passed room 409. Door was open a crack. I pushed it wider. The bed was made, perfect, but on the pillow was a single item, a styrofoam cup, half full of cold tea. I didn't touch it. I backed out slowly, closed the door, and walked to the elevator without looking behind me. I still dream about that hallway. Sometimes I wake up at 2:47 a.m. and swear I hear leather soles on the floor outside my apartment door. Slow, deliberate, waiting. And sometimes, when it's very quiet, I catch the smell. Wet wool, cigarettes, and something sour underneath, like old blood. If you're working night shift right now, anywhere, just listen. It was 3:19 a.m. on a humid July night in 2023. The air conditioning on the 5th floor ICU at Mercy General Hospital in Columbus, Ohio, had been running non-stop for days because of a heat wave. Everyone was sweating through their scrubs. But at exactly 3:19, the entire unit went dead silent. Not just quiet, silent. No beeps from the ventilators, no alarms, no footsteps in the hallway. Even the hum of the compressor stopped. For 23 seconds, the floor felt like it had been unplugged from reality. Then everything snapped back on at once, except one thing. The crash cart in the supply room, room 512, had moved 3 feet to the left. Its wheels hadn't rolled. There were no skid marks on the floor. It just relocated. And on top of it sat a single unused intubation tube, coiled perfectly like someone had been practicing. I still keep a photo of that cart on my phone. The timestamp is burned into the metadata, 3:19:23 a.m. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel before listening to the story, because there are many more scary stories coming up. Okay, let's keep going like we're still in that dim break room, coffee gone cold, the only sound the faint beep of a distant monitor. My name's still Emily Carter. After I left St. Mary's in Dayton, I thought I could outrun it. New city, new hospital, new floor. Mercy General's ICU seemed like a fresh start, busier, more high acuity patients, more staff. I figured the weirdness was tied to that old building on the west side. I was wrong. Night shift in ICU is different from med-surg. It's louder in a mechanical way, ventilators hissing, pumps clicking, telemetry alarms chirping every few minutes. But underneath all that noise is the same heavy silence when things go wrong. You feel it in your gut before the alarms even start. The first sign came about 3 weeks in. Bed 8, Mr. Daniel Voss, 67, septic shock from a perforated bowel. He was intubated, sedated, maxed on pressors, stable but critical. Around 2:40 a.m., his monitor showed a sudden spike in heart rate, 148 BPM, then dropped straight to 0, flatline. I bolted into the room with the crash team. We coded him for 8 minutes. Nothing. Pupils fixed. No pulse. Time of death called at 2:52 a.m. We cleaned him up, covered him with a sheet, and called the family. Standard procedure. But when the transporter came to take the body to the morgue around 4:15 a.m., he stopped in the doorway and said, "Nurse, he's breathing." I thought he was joking. I walked in. The sheet was still over Mr. Voss. No movement, no sound. But the transporter pointed at the chest. Very faint. Rise and fall. Rise and fall. Like shallow respirations. I ripped the sheet back. Nothing. Still, cold, dead. No chest movement. The transporter swore he saw it. I checked the monitor, disconnected, no waveform. But for a split second, I thought I heard it too.
A soft, wet inhale from under the sheet, like someone trying to breathe through a blocked airway. We wheeled him out anyway. The transporter refused to ride the elevator alone with the body, said he felt watched. That was the first one. Then it spread. Patients who died on the unit started being seen again after they were gone. Bed 12, Mrs. Linda Hayes, 74, massive MI, passed at 1:07 a.m., body bagged and sent down at 2:30. At 3:42 a.m., the call light from bed 12 went off. The room was empty, cleaned, bed remade, ready for the next admit. I walked in, the light was off, but the bedside commode was pulled from the wall, seat up, like someone had just used it. There was a small puddle of clear fluid on the floor underneath. Not urine, not water. It smelled faintly like antiseptic mixed with something metallic. I mopped it up, told myself it was from cleaning earlier. But when I bent down, I saw a handprint on the commode rail. Fresh. 5 fingers. Too small to be mine or the aide's. Adult-sized, but delicate, like a woman's. No one had been in that room since the body left. After that, the stories multiplied. Nurses started noticing things in the supply rooms. Items moved. IV bags rearranged by type instead of expiration date. Crash carts slightly shifted. One night, the defibrillator pads were peeled open and laid out on the counter, ready for use, even though no code had been called. Then came the voices. Soft, whispered. Always from behind curtains or around corners, never clear enough to make out words, just murmuring, like a doctor giving quiet instructions or a family member comforting someone. But when you pulled the curtain, nothing. Empty bed, empty room. One aide, Maria, quit after she heard her own name whispered from inside a linen closet. She opened it, nothing but shelves, but on the bottom shelf, someone had folded a washcloth into the shape of a small person, arms, legs, head, sitting upright, watching the door. She burned it in the sink that night. I tried to stay rational. I told myself it was grief, fatigue. The ICU eats people alive, emotionally, physically. We see death every shift. It's normal to feel haunted. But then came the night of September 14th, 2023. I was charged that night, short-staffed, only 3 nurses for 12 beds. Around 3:59 a.m., every single bed alarm went off at once. Not codes, just bed alarms. Patient out of bed, low battery, side rail down. All 12, simultaneously. I ran the hallway. Every room looked normal. Patient sleeping or sedated. Monitors fine. No one out of bed. But the alarms kept screaming. I silenced them one by one. When I got to bed 5, empty isolation room, waiting for a new admit, the alarm was coming inside the bathroom. I opened the door. The mirror above the sink was fogged up, like someone had taken a hot shower. In the condensation, someone had written with a finger, "Stay." One word, dripping slowly. I stared at it. My reflection looked back, pale, eyes wide. And for a moment, just a moment, my reflection didn't move when I did. It kept staring at the word on the glass. I wiped it away with my sleeve. The fog cleared. The mirror was dry. No condensation, no writing. I walked out shaking. That was the night I started sleeping with the lights on at home. Things escalated. Patients who were dying began asking the same question in their last hours. Why is the doctor still here? They'd point to the corner of the room. Empty. He's been standing there all night, they'd say. He won't leave until I do. We had no doctor on the floor at that hour. Residents were in call rooms downstairs, attendings gone home. One man, Mr. Thompson in bed 3, grabbed my wrist the night he passed. His grip was weak but desperate. "Tell him to stop reading my chart," he whispered. "He keeps flipping the pages backwards." I looked at the chart on the wall. It was open to the last page, no one touching it. He died 20 minutes later. On my final night at Mercy, November 22nd, 2023, I did one last walkthrough at 5:30 a.m. The floor was quiet, dawn light coming through the windows at the end of the hall. I passed the supply room. The door was ajar. I pushed it open. The crash cart was back in its spot, but on top of it lay a single item, an intubation tube, coiled perfectly. And next to it, written on a sticky note in black ink, "Your turn." No handwriting I recognized. I didn't touch anything. I left the room, walked to the elevator, and pressed the button for the lobby. As the doors closed, I heard it. Soft footsteps behind me in the hallway. Leather soles on linoleum. Slow, deliberate, coming closer. The door shut. I never went back. Now I live in a ground floor apartment in Grove City. No elevators, no long hallways. But some nights, around 3:19 a.m., I wake up to the smell. Antiseptic, metallic, and something wet underneath, like a hospital room after a code. And sometimes, when it's dead quiet, I hear the... It was 4:06 a.m. on December 17th, 2024. The pediatric wing on the third floor of Riverside Children's Hospital in Cincinnati, Ohio, had been unusually quiet all shift. No crying babies, no parents pacing the halls, just the soft hiss of oxygen and the occasional beep from a pulse ox. Then, at exactly 4:06, every nightlight in every patient room dimmed at the same instant, like someone had turned a master dial down low. For 12 seconds, the entire floor was bathed in a dull red emergency glow. When the normal lights returned, the hallway clock, analog, old school, had stopped at 4:06, its hands frozen, and taped to the glass of the nurse's station window was a single sheet of pediatric drawing paper, a crayon sketch. A child had drawn a tall figure in black marker standing in a doorway, arms at its sides. No face, just a circle for a head. Underneath, in shaky red letters, "He's waiting for the next one." The paper wasn't from any patient's chart. No one remembered drawing it, but the crayon was still warm when the day nurse picked it up. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel before listening to the story, because there are many more scary stories coming up. All right, we're still in that same imaginary break room, but now the vending machine light is flickering and the coffee tastes like metal. My name is Emily Carter. After Mercy General in Columbus, I swore I'd never work nights again. I took a job in pediatrics at Riverside, day shift only, mostly admin now, helping with discharge paperwork and family education. I told myself the change of scenery would fix everything. Kids are different. The energy is lighter. The rooms are painted bright colors, rainbows on the walls, stuffed animals on the beds. I thought the darkness couldn't follow me here. I was wrong. Pediatric night shift is its own kind of heavy. Parents sleep on the pull-out couches, exhausted from holding it together all day. The kids, some too young to understand why they're hooked to tubes, some old enough to be terrified, drift in and out of sleep. The hallway lights are kept low to help them rest. Everything feels softer, more fragile. But fragility has a shadow. It started with the drawings. Kids on the floor began leaving pictures taped to their doors or slipped under pillows for the nurses. Simple stick figures at first. A child in bed, a nurse with a stethoscope, a mommy or daddy holding a hand. Normal. Then the figures changed. Around late November 2024, the drawings started including someone new. A tall person, black clothes, no face, standing just outside the doorframe, always watching. The kids called him the waiting man or the quiet doctor. They said he came after lights out. He didn't talk, he just stood. Sometimes he pointed at the bed like he was counting heartbeats. The parents thought it was night terrors. The pediatric life specialist said it was common, kids projecting fear onto a faceless authority figure. We reassured everyone, but the drawings kept coming, every few nights, always the same figure, always in the doorway. One little girl, Sophie, age 7, leukemia relapse, drew it every single night for a week. In her version, the waiting man held a crayon in one hand. The other hand was reaching toward her IV pole. She told me one morning, eyes wide and serious, "He wants to take my medicine away so I can go home faster." I smiled, told her the medicine was helping her get strong. But when I left the room, I noticed something on her IV pole. A small red crayon mark, fresh, like someone had pressed the tip against the metal and dragged it down an inch. No one was in the room except me and the day nurse. After that, I started paying attention. The waiting man appeared in more rooms. A 12-year-old boy in oncology, post-chemo, nauseous, told his mom at 2 a.m. that the quiet doctor was standing in the corner again. "He doesn't like the beeping. He wants it quiet so he can hear when my heart stops." The mom laughed nervously, told him it was just the monitor. But when she looked at the corner, the shadows seemed different, like the darkness had pooled there instead of spreading evenly. I checked the room later, nothing unusual, but the monitor volume had been turned all the way down. No one remembered doing it. Then, the incidents escalated. One night in early December, a toddler in bed 22, post-surgery for a congenital heart defect, coded at 3:42 a.m. We got him back after 3 rounds of epi. He stabilized, but when he woke up the next morning, he pointed at the doorway and said his first full sentence since intubation. The black man was counting. "Counting what?" the nurse asked. "My heartbeats," the toddler whispered. "He counted to 0, then you made him stop." We laughed it off as post-op confusion. That same night, the crash cart in the pediatric supply closet had been opened. The pediatric defib pads were missing. We found them later, tucked under the boy's pillow, clean, unused, but the leads were warm, like they'd been held in someone's hands. No cameras caught anyone entering the closet. The staff started talking, quietly, in whispers during huddles. Some nurses refused to walk the hallway alone after 3 a.m. Others started leaving the lights on in empty rooms. One aide quit when she found a child's drawing taped to her locker. It was her, stick figure in scrubs, and behind her, the waiting man, closer than in any other drawing, his hand almost touching her shoulder. She said she felt fingers brush her neck when she pulled it down. I tried to stay professional. I focused on paperwork, avoided the patient rooms after dark, but the pull was there. The same pull I'd felt at St. Mary's and Mercy. I needed to see. On December 16th, 2024, my last scheduled day before requesting a transfer to outpatient, I stayed late, told the night charge I was finishing discharge summaries. Really, I wanted one last walkthrough. At 4 a.m., the floor was still. I started at the east end, walked slowly, past the bright murals, past the fish tank that glowed blue in the waiting area, past the empty playroom with toys scattered like someone had just left. I reached the west hallway. The night lights were dim. And there he was. At the far end, maybe 60 feet away, stood the figure. Tall, thin, black scrubs, no face visible in the low light, just shadow where the head should be, arms at its sides, standing perfectly still. My stomach dropped. I took one step forward. He didn't move. Another step. Still nothing. I kept walking, slow, heart hammering so hard I thought it would echo. 30 feet, 20, 10, 5. I stopped 3 feet away. Up close, he was wrong. The scrubs were old style, high collar, no name tag, no pockets, the kind they used in the 80s. The fabric looked stiff, like it hadn't been washed in decades. No smell, no breathing, no movement. But I felt it. Cold. Not air conditioning cold. Deeper, like standing in front of an open freezer. I whispered, "Who are you?" No answer. I reached for my badge light, small flashlight clipped to my lanyard. I clicked it on. The beam hit his chest, and for the first time, I saw. No face, just smooth darkness, not skin, not shadow, absence, like someone had erased the features. I stepped back. He raised one hand, slowly, and pointed, not at me, past me, toward the nurse's station. I turned. Every monitor on the wall was showing something impossible. Pediatric waveforms, small, fast heart rates, but the room numbers were wrong. Bed 22, bed 8, bed 12, rooms that had discharged kids weeks ago, and under each one, a single line, waiting. I spun back. He was gone. The hallway empty, but the cold lingered. On the floor where he'd stood, right in the center of the linoleum, was a small red crayon, broken in half, still warm. I picked it up. My fingers tingled. I walked back to the station, hands shaking. The monitors had returned to normal, but on my computer screen, locked, screensaver on, was a single open window, a blank pediatric drawing template, and in red crayon digital font, one word typed: tomorrow. I shut the computer down, left the floor, drove home in silence. That was my last night in any hospital. Now I work from home, medical transcription. No patients, no hallways, no night shifts. But every December 17th, around 4:06 a.m., my apartment gets cold. Not thermostat cold, deeper. And sometimes I wake up to find a